What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. We're at VIR today. It is early March 2023. As you can see, we got some nice frost on the car, but it should warm up, be a pretty nice day. Today should be a fun one. If you're new here, I'll put a playlist link below of everything I've done in the GT350. The last time I was out in this car, I did the morning sessions with no splitter or canards and no wing, and then during the lunch break, bolted on our wing and bolted on our splitter. Now, bolting on the wing and splitter, my theoretical best to my actual, how do I want to phrase this? My theoretical best non-aero run, I think would have been like a mid-11 or something. And then I only had 2 sessions in the afternoon with Aero and dropped all the way down to like an 8.0 or an 2.083 or something. So anyways, it was approaching like a 4-second lap time drop over lunchtime. For those of you not familiar with me, I've been racing with NASA since 2010. Plenty of regional championships. I don't know, 6, 7, 8 regional championships in that time. I don't know how many lap records I set in American Iron, and then won nationals in 2019. So, you know, it's not like over lunchtime I just became a better driver, you know. So if you haven't watched the last video, I'll put a tag of it up here because that'll kind of explain exactly what we're testing out today. But on the rear, we made ourselves a ride height adjustable spring perch with a 2.5-inch coilover spring. We got 1,000-pound springs in the rear. In the front, we made solid sphericals on the front. Some people call them a radius arm or camber arm, so they're in there. But the big one we're really trying out, the light isn't really gonna let us get it, but our front coilover conversion kits, which allow you to use a 2.5-inch coilover spring on a stock unmodified Magneride strut, which should be really cool if it works out, because currently the car is sitting on 350-pound springs in the front. So that's really the big thing today. Just put some laps on this thing, make sure everything works, and have some fun. All right, so not even out yet. First issue of the day. Car's dead, so I got to jump it from my truck. So hopefully once I do a session, it charges back up. If not, this is going to be a fun day. really happy with how that session went. Car felt good. The misfire issue pretty much went away. Did it a little bit very early in the session, but once I was able to really get on it, you know, car felt good. So what I'm gonna do now is peek at the front and rear spring situation. I'm not gonna pull the wheels off because they do very quick sessions here. I'm back out in like half hour or maybe an hour. I'll let it cool down. But yeah, definitely want to peek at that because they're brand new parts. You know, just catch something ahead of time if there's an issue. But yeah, all things considered, I did a 209. I'll look at my data. But yeah, happy with everything so far. All right, guys, so that session went good. Again, another 209, which is what I did this morning. I'll go back and watch the video, the data. Pretty sure I got held up again, but let's see. Oh, it was doing that misfire thing in the middle there. So that wasted like 2 laps before it kind of like cleared up, and then once it cleared up, it was good for a couple of laps. As far as splitter scraping, again, kind of the whole spring issue. The kit, I peeked at it earlier, but I mean, everything feels good so far. Splitter scraping is probably 95% less than it was last time I was here. There's still a couple spots where you'll coming down in, crap, I don't know the name of the turns, when you kind of hit the curbing and the car kind of compresses, it'll scrape a tiny bit, and then going into, I think it's 11, because the car kind of compresses and you brake as you're going like up again. But I mean, way better than last time I was here. The rear spring perches, I peeked at them earlier. They seem good. We're on brake now, so now I'm gonna like let the car cool, pull the wheels off, and like really get in there and just double check everything. But like, you know, again, the biggest issue we were trying to solve today is the splitter scraping. 2 sessions in, and that feels good. So I'm gonna peek at them. We got 2 more sessions this afternoon. You know, we'll just kind of keep putting laps on it. All right, guys, so just checking stuff over. You can see the part we made to be able to fit this 2.5-inch coilover spring. This 1/8-inch shim was to get the ride height correct, and then there's like the lower perch. Everything at this point is looking good. The car does have a push, but again, I'm not really here for lap times. Maybe last session. I don't have the most amount of adjustment options on this car. I can adjust sway bars. But anyways, I'm just kind of looking over everything to make sure, you know, nothing's coming loose, nothing's bending, everything's still looking good, and you know, so far so good. All right guys, so I'm checking the rear adjustable spring perch just to make sure nothing's like loosening up or rotating or spinning, but so far it all seems good. All right guys, that session was a lot of fun. I finally got like clean track, and I got down to a best of a 206.4. If we hit memory, I think I did 207.9, and then yeah, I clicked it together for a good run. So, you know, I knew this car had it in it. There's still probably more in it. Most of that time was, like I said, just clean track, and just getting more comfortable in the car. Misfiring wasn't an issue, so that was good. But again, I don't want to do too many changes on it, because the main point of this weekend was to, you know, test the spring thing, get a ton of hard laps on it. The cool thing about this track, especially coming around, I think people call it a hog pen, but almost the last turn, you kind of like, the car hits the curb but then like compresses, so the splitter does scrape there, but that's like a really good I guess like load test for the rear spring perches, and even, well shoot, even the front with all that weight just compressing on it. Splitter biscuits, you know, I know they're touching. Whoops. I can hear them hitting the track, but like all day, and this one's barely worn down. This one maybe a little bit, but again, you know, I could go up to like a 400-pound spring if I wanted, being a 2.5-inch coilover at 350. But if you don't want to adjust ride height, you could put like a spring rubber in there that maybe locks out a coil once the spring comes down a tiny bit. You know, there's options. But as is, the car, as far as damping and everything goes, feels great. A 350 isn't too much for the factory Magneride. I'm pretty sure a 400 would be okay, but you would maybe you would probably have to get rid of that top plate on the caster camera plate, as well as that 1/8-inch shim spacer. Otherwise, the car might ride a little bit too high. But yeah, the fact that I got down to a 6.0, that means there's definitely a 5 in the car for sure. you know, I can't complain. Everything feels good. There's one more session left. There's technically a 1 hour open track at the end of the day. I don't think I'm gonna do that one. I'm kind of beat. Yeah, it's all fairly good things today. All right, so as you can see, we're back in the shop. I kind of wanted to get the car in the air, go over some data, go over the parts and everything before I close this video out. I guess first things first, the car felt great, much better with the stiffer springs. Like I mentioned in the video, splitter scraping was kind of what led me down this road. That was drastically reduced, so we'll jump into that first. I showed it while we were on track. Our splitter scuff plates available on our website if you want one for your splitter. They're obviously universal, they can go on any splitter. The outer one is worn down much more, and I did have a little bit of scraping way over on the side, which makes sense. VIR is mostly right-hand turn, so the car is going to roll to this side more often. Something that definitely helped me out there as well is our compressible splitter rods, which out here, you know, the splitter is nice and solid in the downforce downward direction, but when it contacts the track, you can see how, you know, it gives in an upward direction a little bit. So, you know, the splitter can give and it's not just being jammed into the track. So I did a whole video on the splitter rods. They're available if you want them. Just like any splitter rod, they're pretty universal. You can mount them to your splitter, your car, however you want. So all that was good. As far as the whole, you know, stiffer spring situation, what I'm calling our Magneride Coilover conversion kit, that performed great. So yeah, the top plates and everything, you know, look good. The bearing is just a crossover from the Vorschlag unit, so, you know, I didn't expect any issues with that. Bottom plate, we cast these ourselves, but they held in there great. The shim worked out fine. Now going back to this splitter scraping, like right here on the side when the car wants to roll this way, one solution could be, I could put an extra 1/8 inch plate on this side. Now I would have to match it by raising the left rear that extra 1/8 of an inch. The car would effectively be an 1/8 inch, you know, higher on the driver's side. But if like splitter scraping was a major issue, you know, that's one solution. Another solution, I mentioned it in the video, you could put like a spring rubber in here to lock out one coil. So like the car will come down to its normal ride height, but when you hit like a hard bump, the spring rubber will kind of like lock out a coil and give you a stiffer spring rate only when you need it. You know, so that's an option too. There's just kind of, there's options. The front on this side, you can see we're all torn apart because we are working on a setup for the Steeda caster camber plates. So we're super close to the kits that will work on Steedas. So in the video description below, I'll put a link directly to the web page I made for these front coilover conversion kits. Rears will be coming soon. So since we had the Vorschlag ones, we machined them down, tested our prototypes and everything. They're sent off to the machine shop to get a batch done. If you want to get in on that first batch, there will be a link below. Now, if you click on that link and it still says pre-order, that means those parts haven't showed up yet. The estimated ship date from the machine shop, because everything on our end is done or able to be made, but the estimated time from the machine shop is like late April 2023. So if you're watching this in the future, they're already a thing. Link will be below. If you're watching this kind of like immediately, you know, just keep in mind we're waiting on parts basically. And to add to that, the Steeda ones, we're going to be sending those off probably this week, so they'll be probably end of April or very early March 2023. They'll be ready. Last thing I want to get into, not sure how many people are interested in data. I think it kind of shows a lot. Now during the lunch session, I did 209 O's in the morning. Now granted, I kind of got held up, a little bit of traffic, whatever, but during the lunch session I got to sit down and actually dive into my data, and then the very next session out is when I went and did that 206 O. So again, I'm just using an AIM solo here. The orange run is last year's morning session, the best I did with no aero on the car. So no wing, no splitter, no canards, just the GT350R Aero, and I did a 211.7, and that's obviously the orange line. So you can see the big discrepancy is here up in the S's. Another one is how slow I go through turn, I believe that's turn 10. And how much earlier I start braking into 11, because the splitter would scrape really bad right there. And then red was last year when I put the wing and the splitter on. Funny enough, I got a little more speed on this lap. Now, keep in mind, we're just looking at best laps of the sessions. I could go in and probably pick out better sections from different laps, but just for simplicity, we're doing best lap. You can see I picked up speed up through the S's, and again, turn 10 is a pretty fast turn. It's about 90 in my car. The non-aero one was, if we look up here, 83. So almost about a 7-mile-an-hour difference with aero on the car through that turn. And then was confident braking a little bit later on this particular lap. Now, the funny thing, you know, let's jump to the green real quick. My 206.0, again, funny enough, you would think with aero on the car you'd be slower, but again, could be just this lap. Now when you're going, what's that, 47 miles an hour, aero's not going to help you out. So if we kind of zoom in right here, it's like they all have almost the same exact minimum speed. If we look up here, they're all within 1 mile an hour. With aero, I was able to carry just a little bit more speed on all of the peaks. I'm sorry, red was aero as well, but with aero and the stiffer springs where the splitter wasn't scraping, especially going into the S's here. So if we bring the cursor over here, I'm heading into the S's at 132 miles an hour. And for those not familiar with VIR, there you go. Heading up the S's up to turn 10 right here. So I was able to carry a lot more there. Probably could carry a little bit more speed through 10, but still about 90 mile an hour. Now I want to dive into this a little bit more. Again, the car with aero on it, especially this past weekend, maybe it was just like a temperature, it was just cooler air, whatever. But you can see I was much more comfortable. Oh, we got a funny reflection there. I was much more comfortable braking later. This is, I believe, Roller Coaster. is what people call it. So I was able to carry a little bit more there. And then again, interestingly, I guess hog pen is actually about a 70 or so mile-an-hour turn. So the Aero's kind of helping me here, and you can see the green. Since the splitter wasn't scraping as much and the car just felt better here, you can see how I was able to kind of start accelerating a little bit sooner. So again, like all those little bits added up, you know, allowed me to go to personal best was like 2.3 seconds. So I could dive into data much more, but that's getting kind of a little bit, you know, beyond the scope of this video. Just kind of goes to show that the Aero definitely helps. The issue I ran into, I did it before doing springs. And then once I did the springs and had a more stable platform, you know, I was able to push harder into the brake zones, much harder up the S's, you know, and just kind of chip away at my lap time there. There's more in the car as well. Like I mentioned in the video, I don't have too many adjustment options. The car was pushing pretty bad, and I would just kind of have to like wait for the car to go. All right, so I feel like I'm kind of like rambling on this outro. There's just a lot going on. I'm getting this car to the point where, you know, I'm putting up okay lap times. I know my first few times out with it, it was just kind of a headache, if you will. But just like any car build, it's like anytime you go to the track, you're going to figure out like what's the next weak point, or what's the next area that's lacking that can be improved upon, you know. And that's where I'm going with this thing. So enough rambling. I got to wrap this one up. If you aren't subscribed, hit that subscribe button below. Got plenty more coming out on the GT350. As always, guys, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you in the next one.